Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Another week, another episode. This is Stats Over Politics. As always, I'm your host, Shaun alongside my guys, Mr. Kevin Dent, Mr. Garry Singh. Jaevon Toddy is unable to join us tonight as he tends to podfather duties. However, the show must go on, and we got to talk about some college basketball, primarily after we mute our phones. But Kevin, how are we doing?
You know, man, I'm going to go ahead and mute my phone because that was definitely me. But, I'm doing well, man. Can't complain. Telling Garry and Shaun before the show, we're finally getting some sunshine. Not too warm yet, but, we're getting some sunshine. And before we go any longer, man, I have to give a huge shout out to my father, Kevin Dent Sr. He's recently in the comments at Smo. It is his birthday today, so I'm sure he'll be in the comments. So we see him. I just want you guys to wish him happy birthday. Happy birthday, Pops.
Happy birthday. Yes, sir. Happy birthday.
Unfortunately, you're a Niner fan, but
Big 21.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's so unfortunate that he's a 49ers fan other than not being able to see his team win a Super Bowl in the last 25 years. But that's the pain that I've lived my entire life.
Did you go for the Kings?
The ones in the 80s and 90s.
I don't know. Every now he's a basketball fan. I wouldn't say he's a Kings fan.
Okay. Let's see, hopefully
Garry, how are we doing? We just heard from you. How are you doing this week?
What's up, my guys? Glad to see you guys. Glad to hop on this week. It's been good. What else we cooking? We were just, we're just going through the NBA. We'd be locked into the NBA. It's gonna be big week of last week of the NBA right here. So I'm excited to see what's gonna happen. Excited. Yep.
Yeah.
Pop zone. Yes, sir. Happy birthday.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens this upcoming week as well, because as we take the time to reflect on the March Madness that was, we also will look ahead to the NBA play-in and how it's going to shake out, because, guys, we are in the middle, not necessarily the middle, but towards the beginning of the last week of the NBA regular season, and it seems like things are solidified as to who will be 7 through 10 in each conference. We just don't know where everyone will end up aligning, so we're still waiting to see that. The Sacramento Kings are playing right now as we speak, so we appreciate all of you for tuning in, as you probably have one eye on us and one eye on the game, or one ear, so on and so forth. Anyways, guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. Let's start with the ladies. Ladies first, because Sunday, before WrestleMania Day 2 for people like me, Sunday afternoon provided us with a very exciting women's college basketball national championship game between Iowa and Caitlin Clark versus South Carolina and Camila Cardozo. And it was a great matchup because you had the 1 seed versus the 1 seed, undefeated South Carolina versus obviously the phenomenon that's known as Caitlin Clark and the Pips. And so anyways, Kevin, I'm going to toss it to you first, because Iowa ultimately lost this game. They lost their second national championship in a row. They complete the revenge tour after they beat the Hawkeyes, who knocked them out in the Final Four last year. The Gamecocks ultimately win 87-75, and Dawn Staley earns her third national championship in the last 7 seasons. And so just what were your takeaways from the women's natty, Kevin?
Man, Dawn Staley. I've been a casual, I'm going to admit. Shaun has been keeping me up to date. It started last March Madness, when we did the brackets. He's like, Kevin, you got to do it. So now I've been kind of paying attention to the game. But Dawn Staley, man, like Shaun mentioned, 3 championships in 7 years, 6 Final Fours in 7 years, 16 SEC championship games, 12 25-plus win seasons to go along with 7 30-plus win seasons. Her last 111 games, she's 108-3. So, yeah, Dawn Staley is legit, and South Carolina is no joke. Like Shaun mentioned, is the revenge tour. And the lady, I'm forgetting her name, who won Most Outstanding Player. I don't know if you guys remember. I know Shaun definitely does, but when they played Iowa and Caitlin Clark kind of just waved her off, and so to see that kind of come to life, bro. The storylines, I said it last week, like, you come for the stories, but you stay for the ball, man. The ball is legit. I'm going to come on here every time and definitely give them their flowers because they deserve it. And the numbers showed it. I think it was 12.9 million. So that was more than the men's national championship. So the viewers are definitely getting there. And I've been seeing it a lot, I think it was the 2019 class, but all of them were freshmen, with Brink, all of them were, and they were talking about how that freshman class kind of changed college basketball, man. And it just sucks because you can only imagine what Paige would have been those 2 seasons that she played. Like, college basketball is already so intensified, and if she would have been healthy, like, just to run off of that. But enough about South Carolina, man. Caitlin Clark is going to go down as one of the best to ever do it. She literally willed this team to a national championship game when no one thought it was going to be possible. We all knew that they had Caitlin Clark, and she went out there and she did her thing, but it comes to show that. And we've talked about as we've been following the Women's March Madness, they just needed more girls to step up. And sometimes, as the three of us know, the lights get too bright sometimes. I came on here and gave a lot of credit to the role players in the game versus USC, and then we haven't talked about the game versus UConn, but they stepped up against that game too. And it's like when the lights get the brightest, you have to show up. And Caitlin Clark's going to show up, and it was really sad to see him go out. It would have been great, Disney storyline. If you've been watching the show, I'm always one for a Disney story. I'm always here for the underdog, and unfortunately, I've been let down again. So maybe we'll get our Disney Channel ending next year.
Yeah, we won't get it with Caitlin Clark, but honestly, we got it with Dawn Staley because her post-game speech absolutely just touched my heart, where she just touched on the adversity that the team had gone through, the fact that one of her favorite all-time players, Aaliyah Boston's right there in that same conversation with Asia Wilson on the impact that she had during her time at South Carolina. And for Aaliyah Boston to get eliminated in the Final Four last year, they went in undefeated, and they lost to Caitlin Clark in the Final Four last year. Aaliyah Boston has to go to the WNBA without being a reigning national champion. And so, as Dawn Staley said after the game, for the first time, she's sending one of her top draft picks to the W as a reigning champion. And that player is Camila Cardozo, the MVP that you alluded to, Kevin. And I also wanted to talk about Raven Johnson, because that's another player that you alluded to. Raven Johnson is the one who got waved off by Caitlin Clark last year in the Final Four. Mm-hmm. Caitlin Clark absolutely cooked her. She torched her, and that's out of all due respect to Raven Johnson, because Caitlin Clark is her. Like, to put it simply, she is her, and she is a generational talent. So much so that the reigning back-to-back WNBA champions, the Las Vegas Aces, who usually play a Michelob Ultra Arena in Vegas, about a 12,000-seat arena. They have already started plans to play at T-Mobile next year, only when the Indiana Fever come to town with their presumed number one overall pick being Caitlin Clark. That's how much of a transcendent player that Caitlin Clark is. But Raven Johnson, she took the adversity. She said after last year's game, she didn't even want to play basketball anymore. Like, it hurt her that much to have the performance that she did defensively against Caitlin Clark. And in this game, Raven Johnson went 1 of 11 offensively. You look at that stat line, not great at all, but it's because she gave literally everything that she had to guarding Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark had an amazing first quarter, 18 points for Caitlin Clark in the first quarter. South Carolina had 20 at the end of the first quarter. Like, that's how much of a tear Caitlin Clark came out on. And then for the rest of the game, Caitlin Clark is held to 12 points over the next 3 quarters. And a lot of that had to do with Raven Johnson. And just shout out to her, because she really took the adversity on the chin, and just it made her better as a person and as a player. And so credit to her for shutting down one of the greatest college basketball players the women's game has ever seen. And also, this is exactly why when LSU played Iowa, even though I agree that Haley Van Lith should not have been the primary defender on a Caitlin Clark, mainly just because Caitlin Clark is like 7 inches taller than her. Also, I wouldn't say that Flau'jae Johnson should have been the one who was on her the entire game, because Raven's offensive stat line kind of proved why. She didn't have any legs. She was going to shoot the ball, and she wasn't afraid to do that, but she literally gave everything she had to defense, and that's what Flau'jae would have had to do in the Elite Eight, and then we wouldn't have seen those 23 points from Flau'jae Johnson. And so just an all-around performance, in my opinion, Gary, from the South Carolina team. They really proved that when you have a unit, even if they're all young, except for really a Camila Cardozo who had time on the bench sitting behind an Aaliyah Boston. But Gary, just what did you think of this national championship game? The fact that Dawn Staley is building a dynasty over there in South Carolina, but also the fact that Caitlin Clark literally changed the game forever.
To be honest with you, as Kevin said, Shaun, you're the correspondent for this one. We're just novice here, and I'm just glad that, like you said, like you guys said everything perfectly, where they just have literally all the different storylines that women's college basketball created now going into, like you just mentioned, the Indiana Fever and WNBA going to get that big surge from Caitlin Clark doing her thing on this level, and really just bringing a whole lot of eyeballs in. It's funny, like, it's crazy, I work at a restaurant too, so like Literally, like some people were just coming in, which never see talking about turn that on, turn that game on, things of that nature. Like I watched it, like really come in. People even that like people that don't even watch sports usually, just usually like, are casuals in sports, are really were tuned in. So just seeing like obviously Kevin mentioned the number earlier of how many viewerships this had, and compared to like NBA finals and college football championship games and things of that nature, like. It was really cool to see, and like Shaun said too, like it's a good product. Like at the end of the day, we're getting eye open to seeing good basketball being played, and I'm glad there's no stigma of people that have that whole like old school mindset, like they're not dunking. So while we're watching, you know what I'm saying? Like just hell, like if you're a real hooper, like
I've been fighting that for years.
It's like you go to the park. How many people were dunking when you were a kid? You know what I'm saying? Majority of the time, only people that ever dunking you see on TV are the NBA players, and now everyone in the league is not dunking every possession now. Like you know what I'm saying? There's only a few guys who get to dunk or get 2-3 dunks a game. That's like the over explosive, unnatural talent type of guys. You know what I'm saying? So other than that, seeing pure basketball being played. Obviously there's different levels of basketball, but then just you can see them playing as a team. There's just so many different things that I feel like was shown on this level. On all aspects of all these great players, like you guys named, like all these players named like Caitlin Clark and the Cardosa, and then obviously Paige Buckner, and you've seen all the Angel Reese. There's so many. I know you guys obviously talked about Juju Watkins last week and what she's doing at USC. So there's so many players coming up that I feel like it's creating a perfect like trend or some people to follow, and all these people are well spoken and great ambassadors for the game. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like it's clicking on all cylinders, and I'm just glad that it's creating a thing, a must-watch type of event in women's sports. So hopefully the trickle down keeps happening because they deserve it, and that's how those problems that everyone was not complaining about, but asking for like terms of pay and things like that. WNBA players maybe don't have to go overseas to go, get that same type of pay to come back here. All those things of that nature. Hopefully that can start trickling down and helping out. And this all can be helpful for everybody at the end of the day because why not? More sports being played. Like we all know, we all love sports. This weekend there was not. If this was entertainment, like Asha was telling we're texting like WWE look would have been entertaining. You know what I'm saying? Something I don't know about you guys, but every weekend people like to watch, especially here in the USA. Everywhere, pretty much around the world though. Like at the end of the day, your free time with your family and stuff. One thing we are scheduled to watch nowadays is scheduled television is sports. So when there's something good going on in sports and there's great storylines, like Kev said, and like Shaun said, there's good actual basketball being played and things to watch, you're going to be drawn to it. So there's nothing really negative to say. Anyone who would have won, I feel like would have had a good storyline. That's how everything is good. Like, okay, if Iowa would have won, Caitlin Clark. If obviously if South Carolina got the 38-0, like you already mentioned, the coach, what she done and what she's proven to be, and the other two teams that I'm obviously forgetting right now who are played on Friday night who lost. Oh, NC State, that would have been the underdog story, obviously, and then UConn, them barely even having any players and getting to this point, and you know what I'm saying? So it would have been, no matter what, it would have been a good story ending. So that's why I think that makes women's college basketball so cool right now. Like it literally doesn't matter. We could talk the X's and O's. We could talk about, this call, that call, what should have happened. But at the end of the day, this is just as simple like a positive conversation with this one right here. Like really nothing bad to say about it.
Yeah, and I mentioned Raven Johnson earlier, who was the primary defender on Caitlin Clark. If you take away Raven Johnson's 1 for 11 shooting line, then the rest of the South Carolina team shot 55% from the field. Like that's how on point this entire roster was.
Snipers.
And the one player who just the one player who was giving her all defensively kind of skewed the stat line. But even with her 1 for 11, they shot almost 48%. And so that's still pretty good as a team. And I've talked a lot about Raven Johnson, but I also want to highlight someone else. Another Johnson from South Carolina, Tessa Johnson, who was a freshman guard, came off the bench, and she had a team high in this game with 19 points on 7 of 11 from the field, 3 of 6 from three-point territory, 4 rebounds, and an assist. Man, like you said earlier, when the lights are the brightest, some players rise to the occasion, some don't. Tessa certainly did in this game. And the scary part about this South Carolina team is that aside from Camila Cardozo, who's going to be a top 5 pick in the WNBA draft coming up in like a week-ish, like women's basketball doesn't end here. The WNBA draft is coming up in like a week. And then the season, but Gary, Then the season starts a month from now, and I get what you're saying. There shouldn't be any break, but logistics. That's why there's a break.
No, I'm saying it sucks for them. They get no break. Literally.
The college players, the college players. It's an intense grind.
That's good for Indiana. I just thought about Caitlin Clark and Tyler Halliburton in the state. That's going to be entertaining for them. Goddamn, that's going to be good for them, man.
It is really cool. Up there. And so aside from Camila Cardozo, this entire South Carolina team is coming back next year. And so they very easily could win back-to-back championships 3 and 4 years. Like if it weren't for Caitlin Clark, Dawn Staley easily could have just completed a three-peat right now. But Caitlin Clark was such a game changer.
It's kind of like the UConn type of it's kind of like the UConn type vibe when they were kind of rolling. And what's the difference between that and this? I feel like there's probably more actually competitors against them, obviously, you know what I'm saying? Because obviously they had a squad too with Brittany and everything like them dominating for years. I remember that. So,
yeah, thank you for asking that. I would say that, yes, this is similar just in the sense of like how great of a coach Dawn Staley is and how dynastic her team could be if they reach their full potential. But they already haven't reached their full potential because if they did, they would have three-peated last year. But they fell short last year, and that's why even though you see a team like South Carolina winning every single game by double digits, we're about to talk about the UConn men who won every single game by double digits on their way to back-to-back national championships. That's why we shouldn't just overlook like how easy it was for these teams because you can easily slip up and then your undefeated season, like we saw for the Gamecocks last year, comes to an end. Yeah, and Aaliyah Boston's college career suddenly comes to an end unexpectedly. But the main difference, I would say, even though this South Carolina team has a chance to be dynastic, the main difference, as you said, was the fact that there are more competitors out there. There's a Juju Watkins at USC. There's obviously Paige Beckers and AZ Fudd if she gets back to the court over at UConn. And then now you look at Kentucky. You just had the head coach from Virginia Tech go over to Kentucky, as well as Georgia Amore, their top point guard. And so there are plenty of teams around the country that will compete against the South Carolina team. But South Carolina should definitely be the favorite. However, I'm here to tell you guys right now, before we move on to the men, that I don't think South Carolina is going to go back-to-back and win 3 out of 4 next year. I think that they ultimately – I think that ultimately, if UConn is able to stay healthy and they have the tag team of fifth-year senior Paige Beckers and like junior AZ Fudd, then I think that that's the team to beat. Even though they're losing an Aaliyah Edwards who's graduating, I think that UConn would potentially be the team to beat next year. But again, here we are, and someone like me who you guys give high praise to when it comes to my fandom of WNBA basketball and women's college basketball. Here I am, I guess, disrespecting them by overlooking South Carolina already. So we'll see. I just love the growth that we saw from the game this year. And earlier we mentioned the 12.3 million people who tuned in for the Elite Eight when it was LSU versus Iowa. Garry, you thought that was a lot until there was like 18.7 that tuned in for this women's national championship. And gentlemen, this is where we'll leave it. For the first time ever, the women's college basketball national championship game had more viewers than the men's. We're no longer just talking about it. Like we just kept talking about how there were personalities in the women's game because they stayed for multiple years and that drives more interest. That's the reality now. This is stats over politics. The numbers don't lie. And the women's game was far more entertaining, at least in my opinion, than the men's game this year. But now, guys, let's get to the men's game because you guys know I could talk about women's basketball all night. And so we'll keep it moving. So it's not only me talking here on episode number 89 of Stats Over Politics. And, guys, let's get to the UConn and Purdue national championship game on the men's side because, Kevin, the Huskies go back-to-back. They win 75-60 against the two-time National Player of the Year in Zach Edey. That hadn't been done since Ralph Sampson did it a long time ago. And so just what were your takeaways from this one, Kevin? Because you have a team in UConn going back-to-back led by Dan Hurley, but then you also have a player in Zach Edey who has all the individual accomplishments, but he was never able to lead his team, the Boilermakers, to their first ever national championship.
Let's call it what it is, man. UConn damn near runs college basketball. They haven't lost in the NCAA tournament game in 2 years. We saw the player of the year go out there and put up 37 and 10. If you would have told me Zach Edey had 37 and 10, I'm like, all right, Purdue's walking back with a natty. You have to play your absolute best game. Alabama shot 48% from the three and still lost by 12. Like, you have to play your best game because they can do it, and they do it in platoons. And we talked a couple weeks ago when Kentucky lost, and everyone's saying, like, oh, maybe it's just because they're a young team and they're not bringing in the vets. This is a team that has come back-to-back, and they're bringing in guys. They're not just bringing in one-year guys to leave. And if they are bringing in those guys that have the potential to go 1 year, they want to come back because they buy into the culture. And that's all that Bob Hurley is doing. He told us in 2019, you better get me now because I'm coming. I know when Deion said it was big news, but when he said it at UConn, everyone kind of laughed over it. Let me tell you guys a crazy stat. They're 6-0 in title games. So when they get there, they're not walking back with no hardware. Like, they do this. And you saw the guys, you saw the Ray Allens and all the other guys that were there just rallying around this UConn team. And no one really wanted them to go back-to-back because you don't see it a lot. But to see them go and do it on this run, and for them to now be tied for third all-time with men's NCAA tournament titles behind UCLA, of course, 11, Kentucky at 8, North Carolina and UConn are now tied at 6, Duke and Indiana are tied at 5. Like I was mentioning, you have to play a perfect game. We saw that UConn just goes on runs. I think it might have been the Illinois game. It was a 2-point game. You look down, they went on a 30-2 run. UConn is it's a machine. Like, you don't overplay.
Are they counted as a blue blood?
They have to be. They have to be.
Okay,
I know a lot of people don't give them their credit.
That's what I'm saying. They're not counted technically, but obviously they should be. That's what I'm saying.
But UConn as a whole,
yeah,
men's and women's.
I was just about to say that. Literally about to say that. Men's and women's, they've literally been dominating for years.
There were the 3 schools for both teams to win in the same year, and it's been UConn all 3 times. So you definitely have to give them the credit as a school being a blue blood, but the men's program has had its waves. But now to see them kind of back on top, especially for our generation, the last time we really saw UConn good was when Kimba hit the step back in Madison Square Garden. Mm-hmm. That was the last time UConn was good for us. So for them to do this back to back.
I will interject just to say Shabazz Napier did win another national championship after that. So much so that LeBron just had to have him.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember that.
Oh, they did. You damn right. I did forget that. But
LeBron hella did one of them.
UConn went out there and did their thing. And you just got to tip your hats to the champs. And Purdue, you had a hell of a game. But like I said, you have to have your best game to even compete.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Garry, as Kevin was saying, after the Huskies went back-to-back, this was their 6th title since 1999, at least in my opinion. There is not a shadow of a doubt, not even factoring in the success on the women's side that Gino has had as the greatest women's college basketball coach ever. Putting that aside, the men's program, as Kevin was saying, is now tied for the 3rd most national championships ever. So how can you not consider them a blue blood? Like, especially after these 2 championships from Dan Hurley leading them, they have to be a blue blood. You think back to when this first started with a Jim Calhoun leading the Huskies, and then it goes to Kevin Ollie, and now it's Dan Hurley. And when I think of Dan Hurley, most people would think about his dad, the legendary coach, or his brother who played at Duke, and tragically had a motorcycle accident after he was drafted by the Sacramento Kings in the 90s, and his NBA career didn't pan out like they wanted it to. And Dan Hurley's really just kind of been the third fiddle and out of the spotlight, while all the spotlight's always been on his dad and his brother for decades. But now Dan Hurley is having his own success. And the thing I really think about with Dan Hurley before his UConn days is before this, he was at Arizona State. And at Arizona State, he had a player on his roster who was having issues with him. Anyone, this isn't Shaun's pop quiz, but any quick guesses who that player was within the last 5 years that Dan Hurley was having problems with at Arizona State because this player wasn't getting playing time and their family was upset about it?
No.
It was a Marcus Bagley. Marcus Bagley was having issues at Arizona State because he came out of Sheldon, highly touted prospect, goes to play for the Sun Devils, and he wasn't getting the playing time he wanted. Ended up beefing with Dan Hurley, and Dan Hurley ultimately ends up leaving. I don't even know what happened to Marcus Bagley, but now Dan Hurley is a back-to-back national champion after finding a new home. So I'm happy for him. Any other thoughts, guys, before we move on to some NFL?
There have been 4 back-to-back.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And the Dan Hurley family is entitled for 4 of them.
Damn. Yeah, the Hurley family's nice. Gary, what were you going to say?
No, I was just per se it's the men's basketball too. I just feel like it's a pretty good that they've been knocking on the door and created a dynasty. There's just so many stories. I know we were kind of knocking the UConn and knocking men's basketball earlier, I guess, in a way, because it's just not as popular as women's basketball right now at the moment. But I'm really interested in see. But I know I heard you guys had the debate last week real quick about Juju Watkins and Caitlin Clark and all that, right? And I know that got us some views, quote unquote, on YouTube this week. But it was so funny. I seen both points, and I feel like we forgot to say. Same thing with this whole Zach Edey. Some people are like he's not gonna be good in the league. He is gonna be good in the league. Like he stayed a long time in college. Is that good or bad for you? And I feel like we always forget the main point. When they say, "Oh, this person should be drafted number 1" or whatever, it's usually majority of the time it's never based on what you did. Kind of, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you have to show something. It's all about what you maybe could do. You know what I'm saying? Especially the NBA. And I feel like maybe not the WNBA, but I know for the NBA for sure, we all know they kind of draft on prospect and what you can do. That's why obviously the one and dones are so highly touted and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? Wembanyama is doing whatever he's doing at 19, which is great. You know what I'm saying? If he would have stayed 2-3 years and did 21, people would maybe was so weird they would knock him. They would literally knock him. That's what they're doing with Zach. They're gonna knock him because he stayed for 4 years. So it's like, what do you want? Do you want a winning guy who stayed 4 years, growing his game? You know what I'm saying? Like Kuzma kind of went that route. There's players who've done that route. Or you want the young guy who's going to be, if they take like Kevin themselves, they'll take Juju right now because they know she's already doing her skill set so far. Yeah, she don't have the resume and obviously what Caitlin Clark did and everything like that. Obviously, if you do just pure jumper and things of nature, you know what I'm saying? It's not applicable. It's not really comparable at the moment. But if you're just talking about skill set and what maybe she could be, then it's like, I might take him number 1 this year. But obviously, the Indiana feeder probably, I'm not sure if what Shaun would have to tell me about that. I don't know if they have like a franchise person or anything like that that's on their team right now. I'm assuming that's where they got the first pick. So they have no one on the team. So they need like a complete, ready to go superstar right now in Caitlin Clark. They don't need someone maybe to, wait on the what if situation. She could be great. You know what I'm saying? It's all about trajectory. So I feel like that's where I feel like we be forgetting. Like, that's what people kind of forget when they're talking about these players is like, which way do you want it? Do you want it them already ready to go in their 4 years, or do you want the what if situation of what they're going to be in 3 or 4 years? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's the balance people be forgetting about when they're talking about these players and where they're going to get picked at in the draft.
So what you're saying is Juju's better than Caitlin, yeah? That's what I'm saying. I heard.
I don't know.
Makes it 3-1. I have to make sure I heard you.
I don't think so. I'm not saying that, Kev.
I just wanted to see what Shaun would do.
I'm not saying that.
If you guys want to put me on an island,
because Caitlin Clark's ready right now,
picking Caitlin Clark over Juju Watkins right now, especially.
Not picking
Gary. Gary, you. I know that you're not in the group chat all day, every day, but Kevin does a pretty good job of sharing some of the comments that we get, either on TikTok or YouTube. And people were going a little nuts. There were some things that I just shook my head at and I didn't agree with because it went away from the basketball argument of it and people wanted to talk about other things, which I just didn't really appreciate. But that's what the internet's going to do. But there were some people who responded with very educated opinions, at least in my opinion, in regard to the argument. And they weren't very kind to Kevin and Jaevon. And so, Gary, for you to join that side of the argument, welcome. More power to you. I commend you. Because
I don't know if I said that. But what did I say in the group chat though? When I kind of, you could tell me when I said.
I don't know. You're the one that said it. You're supposed to say it. Come on.
I said, "Fuck them. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Let them keep watching. It's all good."
Hey man,
we appreciate everyone who's tuning in right now though.
Exactly. At the end of the day, man,
we respect your opinion.
That's where politics gonna favorite it, and we're gonna just screenshot it into the chat and then not look at it again. So
exactly.
Like we appreciate y'all though. Comments for the win.
Hey, to be honest with you, it's all fun, and we're students of the game. Y'all can give y'all opinions. It's all good. We're going to learn something. We might not agree. It's all good. That's the whole thing about sports.
You may not agree. All that we ask, like and subscribe. As we keep it going here on episode number 89 of Stats Over Politics, Shaun Holko alongside Gary Singh and Kevin Dent. Our guy, Jaevon Toddy, is currently lurking in the comments as he's on daddy duty. But before we get to our next topic here on episode number 89. Let's highlight some of those YouTube comments because as we were talking about the women's national championship game at the beginning of the show, Dad Dent says, absolutely, ladies first. Awesome Final Four. We appreciate you for tuning in on your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And Uncle Manny says, have a great show, guys. Some great basketball by the ladies. And women's basketball is about dynamite, Dad Dent says. And this is the interaction that we were all waiting for. And it's still going to this minute and second, so much so that I may have to be catching up as these comments post live. Anyways, I mentioned our guy, Mr. Jaevon Toddy, is currently lurking in the YouTube comments. He says, James Harden, I'm going to need you to elaborate some more. He says, Kings lost. Yes, thank you, Jaevon. The Kings lost in Oklahoma City tonight, 112-105. The Sacramento Kings got outscored by 26 points in the second half, and they lose to the Thunder. That's a bad loss. But after Jaevon wants to come and troll the three of us Kings fans, Kevin responded and says, the Rockets make the play-in, Toddy? And Toddy, now he's backtracking, says, the Rockets aren't my team. So Kevin interjects with Celtics lost. So there you go. There's your Kevin versus Toddy.
The real reason he didn't come on the show, he's hurting right now.
I guess
his pride's hurt.
Well, to be honest, like when he said that he couldn't make it around like 4:00 is when he realized that he wouldn't be able to make it, and it was before the Kings game started. But I was going to interject with, oh, so you don't want to join us after the Kings beat the brakes off the Thunder? And when they were doing it in the first half, I was thinking to myself, I can't wait to start the show and come for his neck. Because when we were talking about potential teams the Kings might want to play if they make it out of the play-in, I said they want to play the Thunder. They don't want to play the Nuggets, even if they have a winning record against them. Don't want to play the Timberwolves, even with their injuries. Feels like a trap series. I would like to see the Kings play the inexperienced OKC Thunder. I even went as far to say that the Kings would win that series in 6 games without Malik Monk and without Kevin Huerter. Then Toddy said, what about with them? I said the Kings would have done it in 5 games. My confidence level is still at an all-time high. But games like tonight, Kevin, they hurt my heart. They absolutely hurt my heart. And, yeah, these are losses that the Kings can't have, Gary. I agree. And we'll get to the Kings and the play-in tournament a little bit later. But before we get there, it's time to talk about an NFL trade. Kevin, as we just lost Gary for a moment, probably refreshing his feed. We'll see him soon. But, Kevin, the trade that we had this past week, and it basically happened last Wednesday, right after we recorded last week's episode. So topic isn't that fresh, but it's important enough that we got to talk about it as the Bills traded Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans. And they didn't just trade Stefon Diggs to the Texans. The Texans acquired Diggs, a 2024 6th-round pick, which is going to be number 189, 2025 5th-rounder, while the Bills acquired a 2025 2nd-rounder. So basically, you get Diggs, a 6th-round pick, and a 5th-round pick for a 2nd-round pick. That's interesting. And Stefon was with the Bills since 2020 when he was acquired from Minnesota with a 7th-round pick for a 2020 1st-rounder, 5th, 6th, and a 2021 4th-round pick. So, Kevin, whether if you want to focus on the trade that was and how this could ultimately benefit our guy, Coleridge Bernard and the Houston Texans, or focus on what Stefon Diggs ultimately did in Buffalo, because I just mentioned what they ultimately gave up for him and now what they just traded him for. Was it ultimately worth it? I mean, what are your thoughts on this trade?
The Buffalo Bills, man. If you are a Buffalo Bills fan, I can only imagine the pain and the suffering you've gone through in this offseason. Parting ways with guys like Stefon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Trent Sherfield, Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, Leonard Floyd, and Nakeem Hines. They have lost. They let everybody go. And, this is what happens when you pay your quarterback all this money. We talked about on the flip side of this how the Houston Texans are showing a blueprint of how to build around a quarterback on a rookie deal. We're seeing the opposite side of that with Josh Allen. You pay him all this money, you can't pay everybody else. So now the Buffalo Bills receiving room is Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakur, and Matt Collins, and they have the 28th pick. So I'm assuming they're going to go receiver. But for this team to be so close at the door, so close that they have to make a new overtime rule. Josh Allen was 13 seconds away from getting over the hump. 13 seconds. This team has been, like I mentioned, getting at the hammer and the nail every time. They're getting so close, and for them to just dismantle like this, it really makes you wonder if this is going to be Sean McDermott's last year. We're going to rebuild, and we're going to see if you're going to be the right coach to rebuild around. And a lot of people said Josh Allen really wasn't what he was until Stefon Diggs got there, and they're not wrong. Stefon Diggs was all-pro when he got there. Josh Allen became an all-pro MVP candidate, so they definitely helped each other out. But it's sad to see him go. Like I mentioned, to be a Buffalo Bills fan, like I couldn't imagine the pain. But on the Texans side, it's magical. Coleridge, Bernard, Tank Dell goes down. We have the surges of Nico Collins. This team is going to be excited. You asked Stefon Diggs that they're bringing back Dalton Schultz. They signed guys in free agency like Joe Mixon, Danielle Hunter. This team is going to be something scary. Maybe one of the top offenses in the league. So I'm really looking forward to Coleridge Bernard Jr. If you really watch this show, you know who I'm talking about. So we don't have to give him the abbreviation. We address him with his government around here because that's my guy. So I also wanted to come on here and let you guys know that I might be jumping off the Jags bandwagon. I might be having to go over to Texas, man. I don't know. I love Dougie P. I do. I love Dougie P. But I don't know what the hell they're doing over there either. I'm trying to stay over there, man, because Dougie P won me a Super Bowl. But, bro, CJ Stroud is – yeah, they're going to be something scary. And it just sucks because no matter how good they are, in the back of everyone's head when this happened, they go, well, like Garry says, they still got to go to baby go.
I knew you were going to say that.
Like, this is like for a basketball reference. Like, this is when the Golden State Warriors doubled up. They went to go get everybody go against who? LeBron James. So when one guy is constantly winning, no matter who you give him out, everyone's got to put all their cards in. They gave Stefon Diggs his advance, and he'll be a free agent at the end of the next year. So it's really a one-year deal, and we're going to see if Stefon Diggs is still that guy or whatnot. But I'm definitely excited to see what the Texans bring to the table next year.
Well, Garry, whether if you would like to focus on the deal that was for the Texans or the Stefon Diggs era that has now come to an end in Buffalo, just what was your reaction to this trade that we found out about last week?
My reaction was Bills basically had to push the reset button in case this offseason. If you've seen everything they've lost. Like, I think pretty much all their captains on both sides of the ball. They literally had to change their team up through and through, and they kept the coaching staff in a way, and so they're basically banking on the window being closed before, but obviously with the greater quarterback they got in Josh Allen, they were the window is still going to be there. It might be closed, but still going to be there for them. So they're just going to have to let's see how they do this draft right here is going to be real big for them to see. They're going to have to really hit on some pieces to make this team a little cheaper for them. And, man, let's see what they can do. You don't want to start wasting a guy's career like Josh Allen who has proven some things. But at the end of the day, man, it's kind of weird to see because, I think Stefon Diggs obviously felt some type of way with Josh Allen where, I think he liked to comment or whatever saying that, what was Josh Allen before Stefon Diggs was there? And now we're going to see what he is post Stefon Diggs, Obviously, you need a number one receiver, so he can't do it by himself. So I do think that he's still going to be good in Josh Allen, Shaun, because I think you were always been riding that Josh Allen bandwagon, and you rode it, and it helped you on the beginning, but has not helped you towards the end here.
Help my fantasy
falling
team.
Off. It helped the fantasy team for sure. But I remember you was up on them early, and it was good counting them early. But now they went downhill, and they didn't let you ride to the sunset. So we're gonna see what Mr. Josh Allen does. And I think, like you said, Kev, it's kind of boneheaded. Why would you trade someone of that caliber on your side? Like, this is not a NFC team. This is an AFC team. So you're going to have to maybe face this team on your playoff run. So I just think that was a dumb move.
They actually play each other.
Shout out to that.
Too. The Bills and Texans play each other. So that's a double whammy. So I just really you want to get someone up that bad because I guess you're not getting along with or whatever the situation was. Is if you're looking at it from a Bills fan and a Bills perspective, not a good feeling, not a good look. If you're looking for Stefon Diggs and the Texans, you're happy as a motherfucker. I'm not going to lie. Because you're going to be in Houston, in Texas. I think this cheap-ass house over there, Josh talking about often. You're close to your brother now, too. I forgot about that, too, right? You're in the same state as your brother now, so you can visit him.
Texas is a big state, though. It's a big state.
It's a big step. At least you're close to your brother, you know what I'm saying? A flight away, whatever like that, to see your family, like he's really close to him. And, you got a great quarterback still. What else can you ask for? You got some young bucks right there behind you. So maybe, we don't know how. I just hope the culture that they built this past year, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be, because, you do need a pecking order in a little bit in the receiver situation. So obviously, I don't know where the pecking order is going to be, Kev. Maybe you have a strong opinion on it. Yeah, I feel like you might, Shaun. I don't know. I feel like Tank Dale proved something, then Nico stepped up too, and then this guy's a proven guy for a few years now, so I don't know how it's gonna go. It kind of reminds me of what Kev. Well, that's why I kind of asked you, because your Eagles situation when they drafted a kind of number one guy, they got a number one guy coming. I know what they're gonna say. Everyone's the number one. We're all gonna share love, but there is a little bit. We did see there's a little pecking order in Philadelphia. We know who that man is, and they're two guys that still do their thing. So let's see what the pecking order is gonna be in this situation. And yeah, but man, it's gonna be a tough team to face. I'm not looking forward to the NFC keep getting stronger and stronger. Every which team we didn't even talk about really. I don't think I was here on the episode. I'm not sure, but Derrick Henry going to the Ravens, which is even going to be even scarier. That man over there. So it's just getting tough and tough everywhere you see in the AFC. And so we're gonna see, man. I can't wait for the season to start. So man, it's gonna be tough for Bills though. Bills Mafia going downhill.
For our audio-only listeners, halfway through Gary's response, I started to give him the zoomed-in smirk that we always see from our guy Jaevon Toddy, which is a.k.a. the Shrek. And the reason why I did that is because, Gary, you were saying that it seems like Stefon Diggs had issues with Josh Allen, but to me, it seemed like it was definitely mutual, because there was a report that came out from someone who covers the Bills beat, and he was saying how after the very first game of the season, when the Bills lost in overtime to the Jets without Aaron Rodgers, that Stefon Diggs was pissed in the locker room. And Josh Allen was the one who said to him, basically in as many words, "It's just one fucking game." And they were like butting heads constantly. And yeah, Stefon Diggs certainly had a point. Who was Josh Allen before Stefon Diggs got there? Josh Allen was a guy where we didn't even know if he was a bona fide NFL starter, because he was out there making so many mistakes in his first couple of years that people were wondering if he was going to stick around. Then he became an MVP candidate with Stefon Diggs. And so I totally understand where Stefon is coming from, but he also had his moments where he was a bit of a diva. And the reason why I say that is because you look at his production from the first half of this past season and then the second half of this past season. Are we going to blame that solely on Josh Allen, or are we going to have everyone take some fault? Whether it be Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs, Sean McDermott, the loss of who was the offensive? Brian Dable. I was about to say Greg Roman. Brian Dable, who was the offensive coordinator in Buffalo when Josh Allen arguably had his best season ever in the NFL. Then he goes to New York. He turns Danny Dimes into a capable quarterback before he gets hurt again. And Josh Allen kind of falls off, and doesn't necessarily fall off, but at least from the level that he was at with the Brian Dable. And then Stefon Diggs, that relationship, at least on the field, isn't what it once was after Brian Dable left. So I think everyone should take fault in this situation for the trade of Stefon Diggs, really, because this should have resulted in a Super Bowl. I know that we talked about the overtime rules that had to be initiated, yada, yada, yada. As a guy whose favorite team just lost the Super Bowl in overtime, you got to win the game. That's what Patrick Mahomes does. He wins the game, as he did with 13 seconds left in that infamous game against the Bills. And so to me, this is a failure for the whole entire Buffalo Bills organization, because this partnership should have resulted in at least getting to the Super Bowl, and it didn't even get to that point. And so I think that this was ultimately a failure. But before we move on from this topic completely, I just wanted to ask you guys real quickly, because we've talked about the relationship between a Stefon Diggs and a Josh Allen, but we've also touched up on the new quarterback that he has, a CJ Stroud in Houston. Because I've seen this talked about by a lot of people, not just in our group chat and a couple other group chats that I'm in, where people were saying, if you're a star quarterback, do you even want a Stefon Diggs? Because he has that narrative of being a diva or a drama king, whatever. And I think that CJ is the perfect quarterback for him to go and play with, because CJ not only has that locker room on a string because he's such a good leader, but he also has all of his receivers believing in him and wanting to play for him. and a guy in Stefon Diggs could see the talent, and then they could have that partnership where you have the young ability, but then you also have the veteran leadership. It could all come together and be great, or it could not work at all. I think it'll work just because I'm a believer in C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans and all the 49ers coaches that came over with DeMeco Ryans. But, it'll be interesting. And so, Gary, I'm going to toss it back to you first on this one. Just how do you think it'll ultimately work for C.J. Stroud and Stefon Diggs? Do you think that we'll have to even talk about any of these off-the-field issues, or are things just going to work so well that we won't even think about this anymore?
To be honest, I don't really believe in the narrative that Stefon Diggs was off the issues type of thing. It's like it's a he say, she say. I feel like when two people are not on the same page, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, I really haven't heard anything bad about Stefon Diggs. Really, I've heard of this you're mentioning, Shaun, but I've always equated that to winning and wanting the ball and what else. There's always been receivers like that. My guy AB was like, there's guys like Ocho Cinco, who says like this, Shannon Sharp, they both said, raised their hand, they're probably like that. Like, there's been guys who are not – everyone can't be those type of players, maybe Devontae Adams, maybe he's not like that. He's kind of more on the quiet side, back in the day. Larry Fitzgerald, more just professional, not doing too much. Like, either or, as long as you get the job done on Sundays, and I don't see a problem with it. Like, back in the day, I feel like Des Bryant used to get that little thing, and I don't really feel like – I just feel like sometimes guys – maybe I'm going to go over the board now with his last name, but, he's my guy. I feel like as a Kings fan, Boogie Cousins, like some guys, they don't know, like they just love winning so much that it does turn into anger and other people's out who don't know, but it's really just out of like, if you're his teammate or anything like that, that person kind of way, you kind of see it as they just really want to win really bad. They might not know how to show it right or anything. Like, Kev probably played with people like that over his years. You just know that they know that you just know they want to play. They want to win really bad. They don't know how to show it right and it comes off wrong. But if you know them in the heart, they just really want to win really bad. That's why they get frustrated. They might get irritated with you or get irritated themselves and kick stuff and do those type of antics. And you know what I'm saying? They're not seeing the big perspective of cooler heads prevail and those situations. That's what becomes champions. You know what I'm saying? The people who usually keep calm and collected through the storm. So, I'm not, that might be his, that's going to be the thing that just stops him from that. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I don't feel like it's a big enough problem. I feel like the vibes are right in Texas and the Houston Texans right now. So I feel like he's going to want to fit in. This is obviously going to be his third stop. And, you don't want to be known as, the guys kind of, and plus the main thing, Shaun, if quote unquote people are worried about this best behavior situation is he got 1 year, Kev. And Shaun, he got 1 year, so it's a prove it year. So you're going to be on your best behavior. So I don't really believe in the narrative. I don't see anything bad. His brother's basically been saying get him out of there for a while now, too. So if your best friend, which is your brother, basically saying on the net, it got to be basically true. So, I think he's going to be fine. I think it's going to be bad news for the league, bro. It's going to be hard to play. All I know is, I don't know if you should. I'm trying to think, should you pick him up in fantasy or what? Because they're going to be putting up really numbers, but is it going to be spread like that, or is it going to be like my Steelers back in the day? It's going to be all a little bit here and there. You know what I'm saying? But they might be scoring so much, Kev. It might be scoring so much,
I think he's on number one.
What?
I was just saying that I think he's still a number one fantasy wide receiver at least. But I'm sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Now I was saying it might be spread out that they might not, see all these three guys might not get their numbers, but it might be like so much offense that they're creating that they all might just still get their numbers, 1 touchdown each. I can see it, man, because they got firepower.
Yeah, and because their leader is C.J. Stroud from the Ohio State University. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you. We almost did that in sync. Even
I hope the Ohio State guy goes too good now too, Mr. Fields. That's what I'm banking on, guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me know if you want some of that stock. It's still triple the price, but I
was waiting for it.
I already got the stock, dude. He's in black and yellow, my boy.
Nah. You spent all your money on Kenny Pickett stock, so we'll move on.
Told that. It's like he got shipped out to Philly. I shipped him out with it. See that Kevin's house right there in a box right behind him.
All right, we're not gonna argue about metaphorical logistics here, but anyways, Kevin, now it's time for.
Hold on. Before we move on, I didn't get a chance to answer the next question. Before we move on,
my bad.
No, you're all good. We've seen times where a young quarterback gets a big time receiver. Our guy Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, it could go to shit, like Shaun mentioned, or you can see a Jalen Hurts in an AJ Brown situation. He go to a Super Bowl. We've seen plenty of examples. You see the Tony Romo and the Dez. You see Tom Brady when he got Randy Moss for a year. When you compare them, not only does the standard have to rise, but the expectation rose. So, for example, of the young quarterbacks, when you get a star wide receiver like this, you have to pick it up and you have to play right away because the expectation now changed. This was a team that all we kept saying last year had the number 2 overall pick and is playing in the second week of the playoffs. So the expectation is only continuing to rise for the Texans. So I'm really looking forward to see what they can do.
Yeah, I am. I'm looking forward to it as well. I got a little distracted there because we have breaking news in the women's college basketball scene as all-time leading winner or all-time wins leader, Tara Vanderveer, head coach from Stanford, has announced her retirement. And so that's a pretty big deal. I would honestly probably group her with the Nick Sabans of the world who didn't like this NIL era. We're like, I've been around for long enough. I've had enough success. It's time to go. So shout out to Tara Vanderveer on an amazing career. I, as a Stanford fan, absolutely love her and I will miss her. But, I'm honestly not really surprised. So that is some breaking news right here on a Tuesday night that Tara Vanderveer is retiring as the Stanford women's basketball head coach. So now, aside from that, Kevin, it's time to get to some Factor Cap.
Perfect. We are back at it again with another segment of Factor Cap. And Gary, I'm going to swing it to you first. I know you have a lot of family ties with this question, so I had to make sure I bring it to you first because I know they're all here listening. So, Gary, Factor Cap. This will be Dak Prescott's last season as a Cowboy.
Ooh. He hasn't got his deal, right? What's the deal situation? I'm not really.
So he's estimated to get 3-year, 180, which is $60 million guaranteed.
But he hasn't signed his deal yet.
Feels like he got paid yesterday.
Yeah, I know, right? I feel like so his contract's up. This is his last year. He still hasn't got to sign the extension. He hasn't signed the extension yet, correct? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Am I speaking for a Cowboys fan? I don't think they want that. The vibe I'm getting from Cowboys Nation, I don't feel like they believe in Dak. They want a new quarterback. They want a cheaper quarterback. So I would say cap on if Dak Prescott and the fan base want to have that. We'll still want him. I feel like it's been too long now, too much winning this league, man. If you're not winning quick enough, there's too many young guys coming out, and we see it year after year who are making big splashes or changing franchises. We can go down the list of Joe Burrow, and we just talked about a guy, C.J. Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. New guys are coming on the scene within 2-3 years and changing dynamics of whole teams and franchises' future. And yes, Mr. Dak Prescott has been a solid, consistent guy, and hasn't been the greatest, hasn't been the, totally horrible, has been pretty consistent, Kirk Cousins type, I guess you could say, in a way. So but at the end of the day, if they want to win a championship, then it's a cap, man. Because you know why? Because at the end of the day, Jerry Jones is probably gonna keep him because he just wants to kiss. He just keeps people. Just keeps them there a long time. And he's not like my team where we actually see some success and we have reasons to keep him. They keep him even when they do bad, in a sense, and they don't fall on expectations. So I feel like that he's not. I don't feel like he should. I feel like basically the Cowboys are gonna pay him, but they shouldn't pay him. Sorry to say that.
All right, so I'm going to swing it to you next, Shaun. 2024 will be Dak Prescott's last season as a Cowboy.
This is absolute cap, and I'll tell you exactly why. Jerry Jones is okay with having 12-win seasons and first-round playoff eliminations. Why? Because it helps the bottom dollar. He gets fans to sell out the stadium during the regular season because they're going to beat the Patriots 35-3. And then you even get to sell playoff tickets. If you win the division, then you get a home playoff game. That's enough for Jerry Jones because he's proven time and time again that if you are willing to have a guy like Dak Prescott as your starting quarterback for this long, or a guy like Tony Romo as your starting quarterback for as long as he did, that you're okay with not winning a Super Bowl because you haven't been making moves that will get you there. You've been making moves that help your overall profitability. And maybe Jerry Jones is angling to sell the Cowboys for $5 billion because they're one of the most valuable sports franchises in the world. But as far as winning a Super Bowl, he doesn't make the moves that will – he doesn't –
it's not even Dak's fault.
To me, he just doesn't even take that many chances. But to me, the reason why I say it is Dak's fault, Gary, Jerry's actions aren't Dak's fault. But Dak, to me, has a ceiling of potential. And also, Dak finished second in MVP voting last year. And so unless he falls off a cliff, I don't think that the Cowboys will want to move on from him, because ultimately, even if they wanted to, when they do move on, are they going to be getting someone who's better? Not in the immediate future, unless you acquire a Pro Bowler like the Falcons did with a Kirk Cousins. But even with Kirk Cousins, it comes with the risk and liability of him being 35 years old, coming off of a torn ACL. Or ACL or Achilles?
Achilles.
ACL, right? Okay, Achilles. Thank you. And so you could take the risk on someone like that. But even Garry, in the middle of his response, grouped a Dak Prescott with a Kirk Cousins, because that wouldn't even be much of an upgrade if the Cowboys did decide to move on. Yeah, and so will the Cowboys completely start over? Probably not, because okay, this is really fucked up to say, but this is also the reality of the situation. Jerry Jones probably has another 10 years in his life, if that. And
knock on wood.
He doesn't. Knock on wood. I don't want to see the guy keel over tomorrow.
Yeah,
but I'm just knocking on wood for him.
Yes.
I'm just
That's
being
just realistic
here.
Nothing against the man.
Nothing against the man at all. But would, if you were in his shoes, would you want to start a rebuild that's going to take you at least 5 years?
If I was his shoe, I'd trade all my picks.
Well, yeah. So anyways, to answer the question and just to wrap up, because I could go off on a tangent when it comes to the
free
Cowboys
Dak.
and their
Come on,
nonsense.
let me get that for him. Free Dak. Let him go somewhere he can actually go try to do something. So this is
Kevin,
take this filthy coat off.
Factor cap 2024 will be Dak Prescott's last season with the Cowboys. So let's play a numbers game. So I told you guys he's projected to get 3 years, $180 million, 60 annually. Let me tell you what he makes now. He makes 40. So let me tell you the guys that make more money than him. Joe Burrow at 55, Justin Herbert at 52.5, Lamar at 52, Jalen at 51, Russell at 48.5, Kyler at 46.1, Deshaun 46, Patrick Mahomes 45, Josh Allen 43. Is there one quarterback on there that you don't believe that he's better than Dak Prescott? Are you going to pay Dak Prescott more money than the Bengals pay Joe Burrow? He's been to a Super Bowl.
Yes. And the reason why I will say that, Kevin, is because, and I say this in the most respectful way, none of that shit matters, because every time a quarterback that's a starter in the NFL has to get paid, they just keep resetting the market. And so as eloquently as you just put that, and as much sense as it makes, it's not going to happen, because it's all about supply and demand. And that if your time has come up to get a new contract, like when Dak got paid 4 years ago, which because of COVID, it feels like it just happened yesterday. But when he got paid, he reset the market. And that's what's going to happen every single time you have a starter, unless it's like a mid-tier starter, like a Daniel Jones, where you take the middle. But otherwise, if it's a guy that's finishing second in MVP voting, he's certainly going to reset the market, even if we don't think he's worthy of it.
Then why didn't they pay him already?
Because Jerry likes to drag his feet, just like he did the last time Dak
got paid. Let me tell you, we're playing numbers games. So let me tell you who also needs new contract within the next season. Micah Parsons and CD Lamb. Are you going to have to say goodbye to one of them because you kept Dakota Prescott? He is 2-5 in the playoffs. Out of 169 quarterbacks with one playoff win, only 7 have a worse winning percentage. You're going to pay all that money for Dak Prescott. And everyone sits here and calls Kirk Cousins a regular season merchant and a regular season numbers guy, but Dak Prescott, the narrative's different. You might as well trade him and get what you can get. You can get a second, get a third round pick, and do what the Vikings did, man. Try to find your way to get another first and then hopefully trade up. That's all the narrative is. You just got to trade up for a guy. You just have to speed up this process, because sitting here doing the same thing over and over and over isn't going to do them anything. Now, you can say Dak Prescott got hurt. You can say the defense didn't show up against the Packers. He wasn't the same man he was in the regular season. Last season they said it because on the road, A, B, C, and D. There's always an excuse, but Dak Prescott just isn't that guy. I mentioned the quarterbacks that make more money than him, and you're going to sit here and agree to pay him more money than those guys? There are named Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, MVPs. There's no way in hell the Cowboys need to resign him. But like Shaun mentioned, Jerry Jones is going to do what Jerry Jones does. He's going to hold out and eventually is going to hand him a blank check. So unfortunately, it's probably going to be continued on after this year, but I definitely think this needs to be Dakota Prescott's last year. So, Shaun, I'm going to swing it to you next. We have a basketball fact or cap. So, fact or cap. Cade Cunningham is the worst number 1 pick in the last 5 years. So, let me tell you the last 5 picks. Victor last year, 22, we had Paulo Banchero, 2021, Cade Cunningham, 2020, Anthony Edwards, and 2019, Zion Williamson.
Okay, I'm going to say that this is cap, and this is probably surprising for me saying this is cap, at least for me, even saying it, and I'll tell you why. First of all, as Garry, as you know, I get a sneak peek just being like the producer and host of this show. And so when I saw this question about an hour or two before we started recording, I thought to myself, yeah, he's definitely the worst pick in the last 5 years. And Kevin framed it this way for that exact reason. Because
I know, Kev. Are you hate Cade Cunningham or something, man?
I'm a huge Cade fan.
It's a spicy question though, so I get why he did
spicy.
And so to just elaborate further, I first of all, when I saw this question, I thought to myself, "Oh shit, here we go again!" Like that one Grand Theft Auto meme, because it's like, yeah, on paper it kind of looks like he is, but then the last name that you mentioned to me, Kevin, and you guys are gonna say I'm crazy for even
don't say
going
Zion
with this. But Zion has been constantly hurt. Cade has been also hurt too, but Cade has also been a victim. Cade has been a victim of circumstance. I know Cade has missed a lot of time too, so I'm kind of going against my own argument. But the only reason why we care about Zion Williamson is because his teammates are Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas, and they actually can compete.
I love Jonas. Let me be on.
Let me cook.
Zion,
let me cook. Let him cook, G.
Go cook.
Let me cook before the YouTube audience cooks me in the comments. All right. So we care about Zion, and he's relevant and hasn't fallen into obscurity like Cade Cunningham has in Detroit because he's on a competitive team and because he has a chance to make the playoffs. To me, like, Cade Cunningham had an amazing rookie season, but he kind of fell off because they tried to put pieces around him that never worked. Marvin Bagley isn't the answer. James Wiseman isn't the answer. You can say whatever you want about CJ McCollum, but CJ McCollum is a great NBA player. You can't say the same thing about James Wiseman or Marvin Bagley or Killian Hayes or any other misfit toys that have ended up in Detroit. Jalen Duren is the only other prospect that seems like he's worked out so far in Detroit. And so, I mean, with a question like this, you're going to be picking a side one way or another. I'm either going to be saying Cade Cunningham's the worst or Zion's been the worst. But the reason why I say Zion has been the worst is because when I look at a player like Caitlin Clark, we haven't seen that much hype for a college basketball player since Zion Williamson. And then Zion Williamson came in the league, and it's kind of been a stagnant start and stop. Yeah, he made an all-star team. Cool. To me, Zion hasn't lived up to the sky-high expectations that were set out for him when he came into the league. Cade has met more expectations, at least in my opinion. And so that's, I mean, again, I'd rather not even answer this question at all, but for the sake of the show and for the sake of the argument, this is cap. Cade Cunningham is not the worst number 1 pick in the last 5 years. It's Zion Williamson, and it's because he's failed to meet expectations.
All right, Garry, I'm going to swing to you next. Fact or cap? Cade Cunningham is the worst number 1 pick in the last 5 years.
Kev, I've never done this to you. We got to come up with a new word for this question. This like has to be mid or something like that because I feel bad for saying he's the worst because he's been playing, like Shaun said, he's played really good this year. So you can name the top 5. We just named the 5 again. So we got Anthony Edwards. He's not better than him right now because obviously Anthony Edwards, we've shown it. He's just really on the level right now just because he's
Anthony Edwards just dropped 51 points. Garry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but I had to mention this because it's time sensitive.
That's fine.
Anthony Edwards dropped 51 points tonight in front of 50 Cent. That's what my Bleacher Report notification says.
Exactly. So I don't think Cade will be too mad of him saying he's not better than Anthony Edwards at the moment. So then what's the next pick, Kev?
Victor Wembanyama.
All right, Victor. That one obviously is just he just dropped his logo today. What did y'all see on him? He's an alien, bro. Can't comparable. It's just not comparable at the moment, just because he's literally doing what is that? They've been calling him Wimbyama stats, something like Wimbyamics or something like that, where like he's doing like a crazy statistical combo and it's never been done before. Like 5 blocks, 30 points, 20 rebounds, things. He's got another alien. Okay, and what's the next pick? Zion. Who else?
Zion, Paulo Banchero.
Zion and Paulo. Those two right there, obviously, I think probably could be neck and neck. All three of those guys kind of be basically on. Well, obviously, we can't say Paulo this year because their team's actually good. The thing about Cade Cunningham, which sucks for him, is that he's really went to a horrible franchise right now at the moment. Detroit right now is literally doing nothing. Yeah, Shaun, you're not saying anything. I didn't say did I say you say anything bad? No.
No, but you were trying to come after me before you even let me talk. So now I'm hearing
you repeat
what I had to say.
Yeah, Zion is the number one, like not the number one. He's like the fourth, fifth option. You try to say, or he's like the fifth. Like you name is the center of whatever his name is to get out.
Jonas Valanciunas.
Jonas Valanciunas, and giving him more credit than Zion. That's why we yelled at you. But I just feel like at the end of the day, it's pretty neck and neck. If I had to pick 5 players, the best player or whatever, the player I would take last, I guess, and worst, I guess, in this question, I would say yes, it'd probably be Cade Cunningham because Paulo is really showing that his big body and him just everyone really you name has a unique body too. You notice that he really is unlucky with this question. I feel sorry for you, Kid, because you got a regular basic guard body, and you know what I'm saying. All the guys you just named basically are freakish athletes in their own rights, and have literally like Paulo is literally you can't say like you can't do that. He can do everything right now at 6'8", wherever he's at. He's playing center, he can play guard type stuff, he can play everywhere, and he's just getting into a groove. So it's really hard to say. Sadly, I guess this is facts, Kev. If you want me to really answer for you, I give you the fact. But realistically, he's knocking on the door. He shouldn't be too mad at the way this is where he's at right now in his career.
Go ahead, Shaun.
And Kevin, before we get your response to this question, I just wanted to highlight a couple of YouTube comments, or excuse me, not YouTube comments, but Instagram comments from Big Smooth on our Instagram page at Stats Over Politics, where he says, Caitlin Clark, and by the way, I just got to say, everyone's spelling Caitlin Clark's name with a Y at the end because for someone who spells their name Shaun and people constantly spell it Sean, like people spelling my name wrong is one of my pet peeves. When we have such a great player like this, can we all learn how to spell her name? I just had to say that because I've argued with multiple people about this. It's literally the smallest thing, but it's just one of my personal icks. But Big Smooth says, Caitlin Clark going to the Pistons for sure. That would help. That would help Cade Cunningham if she went to the Pistons. And then Big Smooth says, wait, Zion, what? Probably in response to what I had said. And then Big Smooth says, Scoot Henderson in all caps. And just to clarify, Big Smooth, Scoot Henderson went number 2, and right now we're talking. I mean, this is the thing that sucks for Cade or Zion, or yeah, thank you, Kevin. Scoot did go number 3, but we're talking number 1 picks here, and this is the tough part for Cade, Zion, whoever we say is the worst. Is like you're the worst of the best possible group that you could possibly be.
Yeah, I know, right? That's why.
So Kevin, now I pose your own question to you. Factor cap, Cade Cunningham is the worst number 1 pick in the last 5 years.
I tell you who it's not. It's damn sure not Zion Williamson. I like how you said all-star, but he was an all-star starter. Everyone else on this list was just all-star participants, not starters. Zion Williamson's first full year, 27, 8, and 4. Like, all in the paint. No threes. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to bully you. Like, you guys talk about Cade going into a bad situation. They're the number 1 pick. They all went into bad situations. The team that Zion went to didn't look like this. Didn't look like this.
They had
we had young B.I. and young Zion. Not Zion, young Ball brother. Lonzo. They had Lonzo Ball. And they didn't have a good team over there. They were in the shitter for a while. I'm saying it takes time. I'm not saying that the Detroit Pistons
not compared to the Detroit shitter.
Horrible job of drafting because they do. They put a lot of bad trades and a lot of bad draft picks. But the teams weren't that bad, Shaun. You can go ahead and look them up. We can talk about the Spurs. I'm sure the Spurs aren't a good team either.
What's that?
I got the roster for you. This is the roster that Zion Williamson
got drafted. No disrespect, NBA guys.
This is the roster that Zion Williamson got drafted to. Garry, you can
I thought you meant the Pistons. Go ahead.
No. Okay. So, anyways, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, cousin of future MVP SGA, Lonzo Ball, Zylan Cheatham, Derek Favors. Just wait. We're going to get to the big hitters in a moment. Josh Gray, Josh Hart, Jackson Hayes. Shout out Jackson Hayes, also born on May 23rd. Drew Holiday, kind of a big deal. Brandon Ingram, Frank Jackson, Nico Melli, Etuan Moore, Jaleel Okafor. That is a big-time bust right there. My dog, J.J. Redick, Sindarius Thornwell, Kendrick Williams, and Zion Williamson. You know, I see names like Drew Holiday, Brandon Ingram on there. I mean, J.J. Redick was at the end of his career here. Even Alonzo before he really got snake bitten by injuries. That's not a bad team. That is by far one of the best teams that a number one pick could go to, just given the fact that number one picks usually go to absolute dumpster fires. That's not a dumpster fire.
They finished 12th in the West.
Oh,
so
who you
I
got?
don't know what your definition of dumpster fire is.
That was also the COVID year where everyone went because I remember March 11th, 2020 vividly, the day that the NBA shut down, because I was supposed to go see the Kings play the Pelicans and Zion's first game in Sacramento on ESPN the day that the NBA shut down. And my point of bringing that up is when the NBA resumed in the bubble, it was that weird 7-game format. And yeah, the Kings didn't make the playoffs. The Pelicans didn't make the playoffs. But Kevin, I just wouldn't put as much stock into that final seeding given the strangeness of that season and with it being kind of an anomaly. But anyways, I'm sorry. Please finish your point.
No, you're fine. But what I was saying is it has to be Cade Cunningham. You know, we're talking about everyone else on this list is an all-star, has been an all-star already. You have Paolo Banchero, you have Anthony Edwards, Victor Wembanyama is an up-and-coming all-star, and then you have Zion Williamson. So when you look at it from that standpoint, yes, you can say the injuries, but if these players were to switch teams, I think the order would still be the same. As much as Cade Cunningham is a great player, he's going to be a great guy, and Toddy would come on here and speak Cade till he's blue in the face. But take the teams away, just line these players up 5, and you get to pick who you want in what order. Cade's coming off last. We can take the teams up part of it. It's just what it is. Everyone else that I mentioned, besides Anthony Edwards, like Shaun mentioned, came in as quote-unquote generational talents. So Cade Cunningham was the number one pick for a reason, and I believe that he's going to have a great career, but I have to go with the fact. And, Gary, the only reason I even brought this up because I saw something on Twitter saying rank him, and a lot of people were putting fucking Zion at last. So I was pretty butthurt. So I have to come on here. And, because I don't get it, though, because I did the numbers. So people were saying –
I like the source being told.
Look at the game. So Cade has played 138 games. He's averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. Zion Williamson has played 180 games, and he's been in the league 2 years longer than him, averaging 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. So I'm not going to say anything. You can say the injury, but the all-star appearances don't lie. And you can say that he's on a bad team. You can say this, and you can say that.
You can just watch the impact of the game, man. He does be making good. Like you said, he don't shoot threes in a 3-point league, and he makes everyone he's getting his buckets. Ain't no one stop. And you know where Zion's going now. You know where he's going. He ain't stopping him. So,
well, Kevin, I appreciate you mentioning that because I thought for sure I was out here on an island being the devil's advocate for this week since Garry
Twitter's
decided
gonna love you, Shaun.
Hey, I guess I'm in the majority. I guess it works out. And shout out to our large audience from Twitter. I hope that you're all real people and that you're not just random Twitter bots inflating our numbers. Nevertheless,
counts of you.
Hey, looks better for us, so
Thanks,
we
Elon.
appreciate you. Thank you, Elon. As we keep things pushing here on episode number 89 of Stats Over Politics, Shaun Holko alongside Kevin Dent and Garry Singh. Jaevon Toddy is here with us in spirit. Guys, we got one final segment before we get out of here, and it's because, as we mentioned at the top of the show, this is the last week of the NBA regular season. So, yeah, very dramatic. And so, with that said, even though it seems like I got the background fixed. This is why people need to tune into the YouTube, X, and Instagram audience, so you can see all the malfunctions with me being a poor producer. Anyways, as we keep things going, and I shouldn't have even mentioned that, the 7 through 10 seeds in the East and West conferences seem like they have been solidified. It's just a matter of where the teams will ultimately shake out. right now, the three of us as Sacramento Kings fans, the thing that Kevin mentioned as we started this podcast, all love to our guy Jaevon, but we were like, hey, we're all Kings fans on this panel for once, and we don't got a hater hating on us, even though he did it in the YouTube comments. So we love you, Jaevon, and your first seed Boston Celtics, best team in the NBA. Must be nice. But anyways, right now, guys.
Giannis.
Yes. Yep, they sure did. And Giannis has a calf strain, so hopefully he gets that fixed pretty soon. But anyways, right now, as it stands, with as Kevin mentioned earlier to Jaevon, the Rockets have been eliminated from play-in contention, and so you're either going to get the 6th seed. Oh, excuse me. You're either going to get the 6th seed in the West, or you're going to end up in the play-in. Right now, the Phoenix Suns are the 6th seed, but they're currently tied with the Pelicans, both 8.5 games back of the 1 seed being Minnesota and Denver right now. But anyways, it seems like there's 5 teams competing for 1 spot to get out of the play-in. And right now it's Phoenix, New Orleans, Sacramento, Los Angeles, and Golden State. The Kings are currently tied for the 8th seed with the Lakers, both 10 games back of the 1 seed. And they are 1.5 games back of the 6th seed. So they're still in contention to get out of the play-in. But Kevin, I'm going to toss it to you first. When it comes to the Western Conference play-in, who's the one team that will get out of the play-in and make the playoffs as the 6th seed? Will it be Phoenix, New Orleans, Sacramento, even the Lakers? I would say the Warriors are kind of out of contention for that, 3 games back right now with less than a week to go. But just where do you see the West play-in shaking out, Kevin?
So you're asking me who's going to become the 7th seed, correct?
Who's going to become the 6th seed, and then after that 7, 8, 9, 10.
Perfect. So 6th seed, I think the Suns are going to hold on to it. The Kings are really hurt. We talked about it. Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter being gone. And then you look at the Pelicans having Zion with a thumb injury, and then you have Brandon Ingram missing games so late. So out of that, and I mean, the Lakers and Warriors are surging very, very late into the season, but I think it's kind of just too late for them, like Shaun mentioned. They're just so many games behind. So the 6th place, I'm for sure going to have to go with the Suns, unfortunately. But 7 is where I think shit can kind of get interesting. So I think the Lakers come in 7th. I think B.I. missing a lot of time is going to be really hard for them to get in there. And, LeBronologist every year, LeBron's going to find a goddamn way. He's going to find a way. So I got the Lakers at 7. And at 8, I have the Sacramento Kings. I think we're going to be able to beat the Warriors and the Pelicans. The Pelicans have had our number this season, but that's a completely healthy Pelicans team. So now that both teams are hurt, we're both seeing players on both teams deeper in their rotation having to come and make big plays. Keon Ellis for us, Davion Mitchell. And then you got guys over there like Trey Murphy and Jose Alvarado. So it's going to be it's going to be a whole different game. It's going to be focused around a 50-50 Zion. B.I. might not be there. So if I'm going to take Sabonis and Fox versus Zion, I'm going to take Sabonis and Fox every day of the week.
I'm not loving the rest of this Kings schedule, Gary, because they play.
We got our destiny in our own hands, though. Destiny in our own hands still.
It's very true because the Kings, they finished the last 3 games of the year at home at the Golden One Center. Thursday on TNT against the Pelicans. Friday on NBA TV against the Suns, and Sunday afternoon against the Portland Trail Blazers. So, Gary,
one give me.
Where do you see this one shaking out?
If you just want to predict, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, it's going to be tough. Like I just mentioned, as a Kings fan, we got our own destiny in our hands as we've been having all season, obviously. Tough one losing tonight in OKC. Man, they're still playing for something, obviously, to be the number 1 seed. SGA was been in and out of the lineup. So then, we had a 20-point lead in the first half. And obviously, we were just getting on here so I wasn't able to watch the end of the game to see really what went down in that fourth quarter. But, it's a tough loss, obviously. Not able to light the beam tonight to really, be right on the heels of the Pelicans and the Suns. And I kind of got a 1.5 gap now. But, Suns losing right now, so that's good for us. New Orleans, I'm not sure when they play but they know they play us here. So we got those 2 teams right above us, the Suns and the Pelicans, who are going to be coming into Golden One. And so we still have a chance to control our destiny. If we can handle that business, we might have a gimme because obviously Portland's not really playing for nothing unless they want to play spoiler. But at the end of the day, I thought maybe OKC was gonna maybe give us this one tonight because they were like, man, we want to maybe play y'all in the playoffs. Who knows? I thought they were like, I guess they really want the number one seed no matter what. So we're not gonna gamble that away. So it's tough. I really hope we can get into the 7th seed if we're gonna be the plan, so we can at least have two home games, two home opportunities for sure. At least if you're 7th seed, it's scary, guys. You don't want to play LeBron or Mr. Stephen Curry, who dropped a 50 ball in Game 7 in Golden won us last year to break our hearts, and that was like the best first round too, just a year ago. And we've been trending all this is it's tough, man. It's not like we can talk smack about our team and stuff like that, whether they did right or wrong. But at the end of the day, everyone's looking. You can get mad at your team for being in a situation, but goddamn it, there ain't no days off in the West, bro. There ain't no days off in the West at all. Even the bottom teams like Utah, Houston, and Spurs still were trying to be low-key competitive in some type of capacity because they still got some quote-unquote young superstars on those teams. So, Dallas is cooking and things of that nature. I just can't wait till we've seen – there's no RIP Kings yet, Jaevon. Hold on. Pump your brakes. There's a whole lot of magic could still happen. We still got the right pieces. Malik Monk out, hurt. Kevin Hurt out as 2 starters. So, we're doing things on the fly. So, from a Kings perspective, I still got hope and faith because we're young. We still got our system. We still got our 2 superstars. We still got our coaching staff who's great. We still got a lot of plug-and-play guys who are ready. That's one thing about our Kings team that I love. Everyone's ready to go and been stepping in, as you've been seeing, guys. As you guys probably can notice too, like whoever Mike Brown's been plugging in, they're stepping up to the plate in some type of capacity and not getting afraid of that moment like we talked about earlier. But Lakers are 8-2 in the last. It's all about getting hot. And Lakers are 8-2 in the last 10. Golden State is 7-3. New Orleans, obviously, Kev mentioned the issues and mentioned the them downfall going 4-6. So, and Dallas, they after they won back-to-back against home, but that nail biter in our homestand, they're 9-1, and the Clippers too are kind of finding their way. So the teams that are kind of trembling are us, the Suns, and the Pelicans. So it could be a toss-up any which way. I'm gonna take, just for prediction's sake, that. I'm riding with the guys. I'm riding with it. I think we're gonna win these last 3 at home.
Talking shit.
Stamp it, right? Stamp it. We're gonna have to win these last 3. We already got the tie. We're not gonna have the tiebreaker versus New Orleans, but we're gonna have the tiebreaker versus Phoenix. We're gonna slip into that 6th seed. We're gonna have home. We're gonna be in the playoffs. No playing for us. After that, it's gonna be Pelicans versus the Suns. I kind of think I don't know the Lakers schedule. On the Lakers schedule, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not seeing the Lakers schedule real quick, but I'm gonna think that the Lakers.
You want to hear it?
Yeah, tell me the Lakers schedule real quick, Shaun.
So right now they're currently losing 74-68 at the beginning of the 3rd quarter at home against the Warriors. They play in Memphis against the Grizzlies on Friday and in New Orleans at the Pelicans on Sunday afternoon.
Ooh. I think they're gonna be 7th seed. And they're 7th or 8th, so I just feel like they're gonna win. They're gonna be 7th or 8th seed at the end of this, and they're gonna win that game. Whoever they play, if it's the Pelicans, the Suns, or the Warriors, they're gonna be that 7th seed. So they're gonna lock in the 7th, and I think it's gonna be I was gonna be the Phoenix Suns versus the Golden State Warriors for the last and final 8th spot. And I think Durant's gonna come up, and they're gonna say, sorry to you. Booker is going to be his book time. I feel like the Suns are going to creep that one out. Just have a little bit more firepower than this red hot team and the Golden State Warriors too that have, as champions on this team too. So right there, I got the Phoenix Suns sneaking. That's my guess. I got Phoenix Suns in 8th. I got Lakers in 7th. I got the Pelicans and the Warriors not making the playoffs. And I got the Kings sneaking in 6th. And I sound like a homer, but oh well. And I got how it stands right now. I got Minnesota getting the 1. I got Denver getting the 2, and I got everything how it is in the top 6 right now. I got Clippers getting 4 or 5. So that's how I got in the Western Conference shaking out. We'll see next week if we're right or wrong, and scratch and throw all this to the garbage and talk about what's really happening.
Well, I love the optimism, Gary. I absolutely love it. But I'm honestly going to have to take the other side of it. I put Jaevon's comment of RIP Kings on the screen. Because one of the classic, I wouldn't say personality types or characters, but one of the personas that I had consistently on our Shaun and Vaughn podcast that went for over 2 years from 2020 to 2022 was pessimistic, Shaun, because the Sacramento Kings have beat me down for years and years and years, Gary. And last year, it was great. It was great. It was so great last year. You know why it was so great? Because my expectations were so low, and I no longer set the bar high and was constantly disappointed. After tonight's game, Gary, I'm not saying RIP Kings. I still think that they have a chance to get out of the play-in, but RIP Kings' chances to get the 6th seed. It's over now. Bring out The Undertaker, who was at WrestleMania on Sunday, because the Kings' 6th seed chances can rest in peace. You cannot lose a 20-plus point lead on the road against a team that you've clearly had the number of. The Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Kings in their last matchup after the Kings beat them like 3 times in a row, and they just wanted to get their one. The Kings continued to play great against them today, and they fumbled a golden opportunity, Gary. I know that we didn't get a chance to see the end of the game. I had to shut it off when the 4th quarter started because we were starting the podcast, but they truly fumbled and a great opportunity today. But they got outscored by 26 points in the second half. That's not a playoff team, in my opinion. That's a play-in team. And I look at the way that the standings are right now. I agree with Kevin that I think that Phoenix will end up staying in the 6th seed, given the fact that New Orleans has injuries. The Kings play New Orleans on Thursday at home on TNT. If they're going to win one of the back-to-back between New Orleans and Phoenix, it has to be Thursday against the Pelicans. But after what I just saw, doesn't matter if Brandon Ingram is missing. Doesn't matter if Zion Williamson has a thumb injury or whatever it is this time. The Kings are going to get cooked by CJ McCollum because they told him that they were going to pick him out of Lehigh, and they didn't. And so now every single time CJ McCollum plays the Kings, he goes on a mission. He literally said it after the last time he played in Sacramento. He was like, yeah, this team told me that they were going to draft me, and they didn't. And so, it's kind of my mission to cook him every single time we play. And so I'm not confident that the Kings will beat New Orleans. I'm not confident that the Kings will beat Phoenix on the second night of a back-to-back when they have been notoriously awful on the second night of a back-to-back. And then you got the game on Sunday at home against the Trailblazers, a game that they should win, a game that you said earlier was a gimme. This Kings game.
What's your perspective, Shaun? You're doing the NBA perspective. They don't want the Pelicans and the Kings. Put the Golden State Warriors and Lakers in.
Yeah, but I'm not even. Yeah, I may be following that just based on circumstances. But right now, I'm solely focused on the Kings and the team that this team has been all season long, Gary. That's a gimme on Sunday. But you know what else was a gimme? When they played the Pistons at home. When they played the Hornets at home. When they were on the road in Washington, D.C., and they lost to them too. This Kings team has had so many gimme games throughout this season that the 2 games with pressure, especially one on the second night of a back-to-back, I'm not confident that they'll win, especially the second game of the back-to-back. And then when it comes to a game that should be a gimme, this team has proven time and time again throughout this season that
Shaun,
there is no such thing as a gimme.
Bro. We got
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
You got to keep believing. I'm going to tell you why we should keep believing. Because this team has not laid down in a way where we shouldn't believe. Every time we've kind of been, again, black against the walls, we have at least made it a close affair. That Dallas game, we got a whoop the first time. Yeah, we lost the second game, but Kyrie and Luka just did magical things, but we were there and right there around their necks. Tonight, obviously, we fumbled up again, but like when we lost to Boston the one time, the second time we lost it, but like we've been right there, Shaun. That's what I'm saying. We've been right there. And, last year we had things, got a little lucky, fell our way. You know what I'm saying? This year, not getting so little lucky, not falling our way. At some point, if we got the guys I believe we got in our locker room and things of that nature in terms of being great and of them doing what they've been shown this whole season of Domantas Sabonis being a double-double machine and him not getting enough credit and things of that nature, I think that he deserves credit. Fox being Mr. Fourth Quarter again this year, not doing the same way, but still doing effectiveness in the fourth quarter, trusting his teammates more and letting other people emerge on the scene, like Kessler Edwards, like Keon, like we already know Jaevon not having his groove back, like we already know Harrison Barnes is being the steady man it is. I feel like if we count ourselves out now, Shaun, we can't be one of them fans, man. We can't, because I already know I got a lot. We already that whole arena right now is probably feeling that way in some sort of way, just because all the Kings fans are obviously tainted and hurt and basically scarred for life. Because this is all everyone always says once we lose, it's the Kings being the king. It feels like the old Kings. And last year we finally lit that beam to finally get rid of that narrative. And we're letting
16 years does that to you.
And we're speaking it back to in existence. It's happened to us this year. We're not going to be, if no one said it was going to be cupcakes and lollipops the whole way through. We're going to have some adversity. It sucks that it's happened adversity and we're still losing. We would hope that adversity be hit and we could still win. But at the end of the day, we still got 3 games. We still got our own control on density. So at the end of the day, we can't give up on the Kings. We can't do it, Shaun. Like Uncle Manny saying, we're going to sweep the next 3 and win the next 3 games. Hopefully, if worst case scenario, go 2-1. If worst case scenario. So let's see. I think, Shaun, everyone knows it's all the marbles are in. The pressure is built on. That's why we love this play-in thing. All the superstars are going to have to be superstars. It's going to be fascinating to see. It's going to be fun television. Literally, all these playing guys from 6 all the way to 10 got a superstar. Literally, we got Zion, we got Durant and Booker, we got Curry, Clay, we got LeBron, we got AD, we got Sabonis, we got Fox. We got the whole shakeup. And so I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the Western Conference playoffs. I still believe as a Kings fan we got to make some mistake, but hey, it's going to be tough though. I just named a whole bunch of players that we're going to have to go through, Shaun. So I can see what you're saying here, but I think that, our young Bucks proved something last year in the great moments. We went up 2-0. I know Steph Curry and the defending champions at that time came back. We pushed them on the brink to Game 7 with a similar, with our 2 head horses there. So I feel like we still got some things, man. We still got some things on our team where we can't give all hope just yet until they really knock us out, Shaun. Until we knocked out, I ain't losing hope. Until we knocked out.
Well, I haven't completely given up. As I mentioned before, I haven't given up on the entire Kings season, but I have given up on them getting the 6th seed and avoiding the plan. That is what I have given up on. And, if we come back next week and the Kings are the 6th seed and they completely avoided the plan, I will come back on this podcast and say how wrong I was, Gary, and how I should have listened to you. But right now, after this Oklahoma City Thunder loss tonight, getting outscored 26 points in the second half, the Kings, their chances to get the 6th seed are done. Just to wrap up with the Western Conference, then we'll quickly get to the Eastern Conference and close things out. So I got Phoenix getting the 6th seed. I agree with Kevin that I think the Lakers vault up to the 7th seed. Then I got New Orleans getting 8, Sacramento getting 9, and Golden State getting 10. So we'll see if that ultimately does happen.
Not even the 7 and 8 for us.
Well, it would be playoff basketball. It would be
playoff basketball, dude. Playing bad playoff basketball is Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, Game 4. That's playoff basketball.
Well, here's the thing, Gary. Why the play-in is so great is because in years past, if the Kings finish as the 9th seed, you're done. No playoffs at all for you. But now there's the play-in, so the Kings could get the 9th seed. They host the 9-10 play-in at home at the Golden One Center. You'll be there if that happens. And the Kings could win on their home floor and then go on the road and win against the loser of the 7-8 matchup, which could easily be the Pelicans. I would much rather lock in the 6th too, but then lost to the Pistons and the Hornets. So we can't always.
And we're talking about teams that ain't had blemishes on their record, man. The Lakers and Warriors been shit in the bed too with some teams. We don't want to mention that.
Yeah, and so the Kings aren't alone in that. It's just the Kings are the most prevalent for us, obviously, as fans living in Sacramento. But so Gary got the Kings getting 6. I got them getting 9. I think Kevin said 8 for where he has the Kings ended up. So thank you for confirming that. And just for our audio only listeners, our guy Kevin had to depart as he had to take a work call. So we will see him next week. Gary, the money is calling. And so before we get out of here, Gary, for episode number 89 of Stats Over Politics, let's focus on the Eastern Conference. We already got to the best coast being the West, but now taking a look at the Eastern Conference, it's kind of the same situation where you have, rather than having 5 teams competing for one spot, trying to get 6, now it's really kind of a mixed bag in the Eastern Conference because you have Boston, who is far and away the number 1 seed, far and away the best team in the NBA. Congratulations, Jaevon. I want to be a hater, but I also said
62 games. Jeez, that's tough, bro. 61 team is commendable. I'm not gonna lie, commendable.
Yeah. 62 wins with 3 games left to go. They could easily get to 65, which would be nuts. But anyways, then second place, Milwaukee, is 14 games back of the Celtics. Then you got the Knicks at the 3rd seed. They're 15 games back. But so basically, if you take Boston out of the equation, you have Milwaukee, then you have New York's a game behind them, Orlando's a game behind New York, and Cleveland and Orlando are tied. Then you have Indianapolis. Yeah, you have the Pacers, who are a half game behind Cleveland. Shout out Tyrese Halliburton. The Sixers, who just recently got Joel Embiid back, are a game behind the Pacers. Then you get to Miami, who's in 8th, but they're only a game and a half out of the 6th seed right now. And then that's when things get a lot further.
Bulls and Atlanta locked in. Who's going to have home court, baby, for 9 or 10?
Exactly. Chicago
like
and
for
Atlanta.
A cool minute.
Yeah, and weren't they the 9-10 matchup last year too? Or it might have been
so.
Chicago. I think it was Chicago and Toronto last year, and Atlanta might have been in the 8-9, but or 7-8. But anyways, you got Chicago and Atlanta. They're locked into the 9-10 playing game, as Gary mentioned. It's just a matter of
no matter what, they know they got to go on the road to get this playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Gary, taking a look at the Eastern Conference, as you mentioned, is a lot more crowded, and things could change a lot within the next week, at least for 2 through 8, but even 3 through 8. So where do you see it shaking out?
Real quick, this is maybe an NBA, just idea. We have good ideas on here as fans of the game here and, students of the game. Maybe, I'm telling you, the play-in should only be activated if it's like a 2-game, 3-game max.
Yes.
My God.
Yes.
Bulls and Heat shouldn't even be scared. Like, there shouldn't even be a play-in
7 games.
Like,
7 games out of 8.
Exactly. So, that's too many games. Like, Chicago can fuck around because they got guys in there too. And when DeMar DeRozan and
they did it last year.
And DeMar DeRozan and to play with Alex Caruso. Obviously, I don't think Levine's out and Ball's out. So, but they still got guys. Exactly. Atlanta Hawks, they still got Trae Young. I think he's still going, and they got Murray, who's been having big spurts in his year too. So they got guys that you don't want to play out of nowhere. So, it's still tough 1-game situations, but it is what it is. It's going to count some entertainment. Like you said, this whole thing, the crazy part is, Orlando's in the 4th seed, and they can literally, if they lose 2 games here, drop to the 8th and mean a play-in. So it's really close. Matchups is at a high intensity. If we're just going to guess here, I think Cleveland here is, I think, man, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I don't know how these guys, their schedule is, but all I know is Cleveland's on the downhill. So I think Cleveland's going to end up falling out here, Shaun, into the 7th seed. I think Joel's getting him back. He's going to end up helping them at least getting their punching their ticket through. And so Orlando's going to stay at least, I think, still in the play-in. So I feel like the 7th, I'm going to have 7th, 8th matchup being Cleveland versus Miami for 7th, 8th seed. And I got Miami winning that. And then so I got Sixers and Indiana punching their ticket, obviously the top 6. And so after that, I have Chicago. No, I have Atlanta actually. No, let me try to think. I don't know who's gonna win that. I have no clue. They're actually so close of the teams, where they are. I'm gonna give Mr. Trae Young, Vaughn's guy. So maybe they're just a little small, so I feel like they're gonna get it's gonna be tough. Nah, you're right. I'm gonna go DeRozan and them. I keep going back and forth. I keep thinking Caruso
make a decision.
It's tough because who's gonna really play? That's a tough toss-up. I'm gonna go Atlanta. All right, I'm gonna go back to Atlanta. I'm gonna win that. But it don't really matter if I think that whoever they're gonna lose to Miami. Miami's gonna end up being the 8th seed. So we have Miami as the 8th seed. We're gonna have Cleveland at Hold on. I'm messing this up.
Hold on. Let me help you out here. I know that you were so torn. It ultimately will be irrelevant because, like we both believe, whoever wins that 9-10 play-in game, they're ultimately going to lose whoever they play in the next matchup. But would you say, just because it's kind of such a toss-up and a pickup right now, would you say that Chicago-Atlanta matchup really depends on who ends up getting home court? Because that's something we talked about earlier is they're locked in at 9-10. It's just a matter of who gets home court. Would you give the advantage to whoever does end up getting home court, which right now it looks like it would be Chicago?
We're both stuck on the road, so I guess both 15-24 and 17-21 on the road. So, yeah, I guess home court is going to be good, even though Chicago is 20-21, under 500, while Atlanta is 21-19 at home. So, I was really thinking while I was doing the toss-up on my mind, Shaun, just because I was thinking who's playing and matchups, things of that nature. The Chicago's kind of more bigger than Atlanta. Or is that going to be more of a factor for one-game situation? DeMar DeRozan's clutch. But then I just came down to Murray and Young just outscoring those guys for this one game. So, but it don't matter because at the end of the day, I got Chicago, Atlanta not making it. It don't matter. I got Cleveland as the 8th seed. I got Miami as the 7th seed. I got Philadelphia and the Pacers getting the 5th and 6th seed.
So similar to you, I also think that obviously Joel Embiid's kind of a big deal, reigning MVP. And so I do think that he'll end up vaulting the Sixers into the top 6. I also think the same for Miami, just because Terry Rozier, like no one's really talking about what Terry Rozier has been doing in Miami since he got acquired there. But everyone's always like, oh my God, Jimmy Butler's not doing anything in the regular season. Just wait till he gets to the playoffs. Bam Adebayo, yada, yada, yada. Terry Rozier has been quietly, like he's had like 5 30-point games in the last like 8.
He's a bucket getter. He's been.
Yeah. Scary Terry is quietly an assassin down there in South Beach. And so I think not only the Sixers vault up, but also Miami vaults up. So with that, 2 teams have to fall out. And I think it's ultimately going to be the 2 teams that are currently tied for 4 right now, which would be crazy. But like you said, it's so bunched together. That would be Orlando and Cleveland. As you already talked about with you having Philly jumping up, you have Cleveland getting knocked down. But I think Orlando gets knocked down just because maybe they trip up. They're looking ahead, and they're just trying to lock in that playoff spot. And I got to take a look at their upcoming schedule.
I mean,
they play in Milwaukee against the Bucks tomorrow night. Then they play in Philly at the 76ers, and then they host the Bucks. That is a fucking tough. That's a tough.
Damn, I might switch my pick, man. I see the schedule. They might.
Yeah, so it sounds like me and Gary both have Orlando and Cleveland falling out of the playoffs, Philly and Miami getting in, and so that would leave at least. I did
say Orlando was going to knock it in. I'm not going to lie, but I'm about to switch it up with you. Because looking at the schedule after that, they're going to ride. We didn't look at the schedules to do this. That's what I'm saying. Oh yeah, and then Cleveland kind of got an easy schedule. Memphis and Hornets, so they might actually still end up punching their ticket, even though they're 3-7 in the last 10. They're not on the 3
I don't trust Cleveland. I don't trust Cleveland.
So Cleveland should fall out because they're not having been looking too good lately. So
yeah, so I got it finishing out just because, as we already talked about, just excluding Boston, they got the number 1 seed in the NBA locked up. So in the East, I got my Milwaukee staying at 2. New York staying at 3. I really was impressed with what the Knicks did without Julius Randle that we got to see up close and personal this past Thursday on TNT, where the Kings had another 20-point lead on the road that they blew. So again, that's why my pessimism is coming out strong. But just to wrap things up, because you and I could talk forever. Number 2, I got Milwaukee. 3, New York. 4, I actually have Indiana jumping up to 4. Shout out to Halliburton. 5, Philadelphia. 6, Miami. 7, Cleveland. 8, Orlando. 9, Chicago. 10, Atlanta. And then from there, I think that Orlando ultimately gets in as the 7th seed. And, it's kind of a toss-up. Cleveland, Chicago, Atlanta. I say Cleveland gets in at the 8th seed. But, we shall see. And Gary, we will be back next Monday for our full NBA playoff preview on episode number 90 of Stats Over Politics. But before we get out of here, you got any final thoughts for our listeners?
Man, I hope our Kings make it. I hope the Kings make it. It's been fun, guys. I appreciate everyone tuning in. You know what I'm saying? We do this for fun. I do it for fun. We're all students of the game, and we do it as fans and as friends. So it's been cool to chop it up and mess around. So keep on. Appreciate everyone. Keep on supporting the podcast and keep showing love anytime people see it. So it's a fun thing. I think we all do a little therapeutic too to talk to our supports with some guys. So it's fun. So appreciate everyone supporting. Keep tuning in. And yeah, NBA starting to cooking. We all love NBA on this podcast. We just watched college hoops, March Madness cooking. We just got off before that. Great NFL season. So it keeps going back to back to back. News every week. So let's keep on chugging away. Episode 89. We might be in the 90s next week when we talk, Shaun. So let's get it.
Yes, sir. And one final Instagram comment I wanted to highlight before we go. At Gil the General, GNE says, Boston all the way. Great podcast, by the way. We appreciate
free my
Gil,
guy
for tuning in. free Gary's guy. And so with that, that's going to do it for episode number 89 of Stats Over Politics. Make sure to give us a like on YouTube. It helps us a lot. And if you enjoy the podcast, hit subscribe to get notifications when we go live. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Stats Over Politics and on X at Stats Over Politics. See all the great content Kevin's putting out there. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on all podcast platforms. And if you're enjoying the show, give us those 5 stars. Don't be a hater. We'd really appreciate it. As you guys have been tuned in to episode number 89 of Stats Over Politics. For my guys, Jaevon, Toddy, Kevin Dent, and Gary Singh, I'm your host, Shaun Holko. Thank you for tuning in, and we will be back to our regular day next Monday at 7 p.m. here on Stats Over Politics. Later.
Peace.